We talk a lot about faith. We read about it, we listen to talks, we think about it. But what if the real test, what if it has nothing to do with our words and everything to do with our deeds? Let's explore what it truly means to move from just believing to intentionally doing.
It's so easy to think that our spiritual journey is all about collecting things, more sermons, more books, more knowledge. But what if that's not the real measure? What if what you know isn't nearly as important as something else?
And you know what? It's not just about what you know, it's about what you've heard, too. All those powerful messages, all those moments where you're nodding along in agreement, they're definitely part of the process, but they are not the final destination.
And so, here it is. This is the one question that just cuts through all the noise. For just a moment, forget what you know, forget what you've heard. The ultimate bottom line is this. What action do you take? What do you actually do? Because that's the point where faith stops being just an idea and becomes real.
To really get our heads around this, let's look at a classic story that puts this exact tension on full display, that huge gap between what we say we'll do and what actually gets done.
The setup here is just beautifully simple. You've got a father who makes a direct, crystal clear request to his sons. It's a call to action, go and work. There's no ambiguity, no wiggle room at all. And just look at this complete reversal. Son number 1 starts out with total defiance, I will not. But then he changes his mind and ends up in obedience. The other son? He starts with the perfect, most respectful answer you could ask for, but his words just hang there, totally empty. It's a classic case of flawless words versus zero follow-through.
The lesson is just unmistakable, isn't it? The father's will wasn't done by the son who gave the right answer, but by the one who actually did the work. Your initial response doesn't matter nearly as much as your final action. So, if action is the ultimate goal, how do we make sure we're taking the right actions? Well, that requires a huge shift in how we prepare, moving from our own plans to something much, much bigger.
This brings us to this fantastic Swahili concept, Tuache Kumpanga Mungu. It's about a really fundamental shift in our thinking. We have to stop handing God our detailed blueprints and demanding He sign off on them. Instead, the idea is to invite Him into the planning process from the very beginning, to co-create our direction and align our motives with His. It's a call to collaborate, not to dictate.
And this piece of ancient wisdom just drives the point home. Before you build anything, whether it's a physical tower or something in your spiritual life, you have to sit down first. You have to be thoughtful, you have to assess the cost, and you have to be honest about what's actually required. That's not a lack of faith, that's the bedrock of wise, intentional action.
This whole idea of being honest with ourselves, it really pushes us deeper. It forces us to look past the external show and start asking some tough questions about the true state of our hearts.
This comes from the story of the Barren Fig Tree. From a distance, it looked the part, right? It was full of leaves, it seemed alive and totally productive. But up close, nothing, no fruit. It had the appearance of life, but it completely lacked the substance. It's such a stark and powerful image of spiritual emptiness.
And that brings us to this very direct, very personal question. It just cuts through everything else, beyond all the busyness, beyond the automatic, I'm fine. Are you truly okay? Are you bearing fruit, or is it just leaves?
And this is where things get incredibly practical, especially when we think about peace. So many of us treat it like a destination. I'll finally have peace when this happens. But that's a chase that never ends. The powerful shift is realizing peace isn't someplace you arrive at. It's a state of mind. It's a choice you make right now, in the middle of everything. You don't find peace, you choose it.
Okay, but if peace is a choice, what about all the daily pressures that seem to work against it? What if we've been looking at all those challenges completely wrong?
This verse is just incredible. It's basically asking, if you're getting completely worn out by the small everyday challenges, the footmen, how will you ever be ready for the major opportunities and battles, the horses that are part of your bigger calling? The small struggles aren't there to defeat you. They're there to train you.
Think about it this way. This isn't punishment. It's an answer to a prayer. You ask for growth, and what happens? You're met with pressure, because that's what causes things to grow. You ask for strength, and you're met with challenges, because that's what builds strength. The very difficulties you're facing right now might be the tools shaping you into the person you prayed you'd become. This brings us to one of the most practical and, let's be honest, one of the most difficult parts of being intentional, learning the power of the word no.
It's a fascinating idea when you stop and think about it, right? A no actually forces a conversation. It makes you explain your reasoning, it makes you count the cost. But a quick, easy yes, so often that just shuts down the very discussion you needed to have, locking you into a path you never really considered.
So why do we default to yes all the time? Well, because it's easier, plain and simple. We want to avoid the discomfort, the justification, that awkward moment. But there's a huge warning sign here. The path of the easy yes can very often lead to a very, very difficult life.
So let's bring it all together now. The words versus the deeds. Planning with God, the true state of our hearts, and the cost of our choices, and boil it down to one final unifying idea.
This is the ultimate takeaway. It's not about your good intentions, it's not about your powerful words or your intellectual agreement. In the end, the one undeniable evidence of your faith, of your beliefs, of your commitment is your action.
And so we end right where we began, with a question for each of us to carry with us. When you're faced with a choice, a call, or a commitment, the challenge is always this: am I just another person with good words, or am I someone whose actions tell the real story?